Hello everybody, good morning and welcome to the United Stand. This is your latest Manchester United news as Ole Gunnar Solskjaer calls for calm. He spoke about his tactics yesterday, or lack of them as some might say, lack of clarity in relation to the midfield. We've also had comments coming out from Fred, and I think that, obviously he's spoken about Jesse Lingard, long-term future, people not happy about that as well. I think there's a lot of people concerned at the moment, and I'm not going to put water on those fires. I mean, it's down to the individual, but what I would say is that I think when Solskjaer calls for calm and says that, look, ups and downs are going to happen and it's how you respond, I know it's frustrating, and as I said the other day, it is frustrating. We're always bloody bouncing back. I mean, I saw Jesse Lingard's tweet about, feeling down about what he'd done. Absolutely no problem with that. But the replies to it, we'll bounce back, we're better together. All the players, I think Pogba, Bruno, players I like, or we're going to bounce back, this, that and the other. It's like, that's great. And a lot of people will love all that. But for me, personally, I'm just tired of it. I'm tired of us having to bounce back. There's that line, isn't there? It's not how hard you fall, it's how quick you get up. But somebody does need to keep asking questions about why you keep falling over. Like, when my nephew kept falling over when he was toddling, you think, well, it's because he's learning to walk. And after a few weeks, he kept falling over. He just kept falling over. We took him to the doctors and he needed glasses. So, there's no problem with falling over. There's no problem with falling over. And yeah, keep getting up. But why do United keep falling over? Do we need glasses? No, we need a bloody midfielder. That's what we need. We knew we needed a midfielder. Nobody gave us a midfielder. And it's interesting because Fred's come out and spoke this morning, and this is the first thing I want to say. So Fred's come out and said, as I've said before, my objective is to get the ball to the forwards, to always be ready to receive the ball from the centre-backs, receive a pass and have the right body position to control it and find a good pass. I aim to improve in this area. This is the most important area to improve, and in developing my position, I visualise this every day. So I look to improve on positioning on the pitch and additional pass turns during a game and all that. I work hard after training on my passing, sometimes turning in the midfield, things more specific to my position. And I think what you can take from that is that when Fred's coming out saying my objective is to get the ball to the forwards, to always be ready to receive the ball from the centre-backs, receive a pass and have the right body position, this is a guy who's learning on the job, people. This is a guy who is learning on the job at Manchester United in a season where we're trying to win the title. This is the problem I and many people spoke about. We haven't got a number 6. And Ole can talk in his press conference like he did yesterday about people getting hung up on 6 and 8s and this, that and the other. But that's because that's the modern game, mate. That is the modern game. City have got a 6. Liverpool have got a 6. They've got an 8. Man City have got an 8. Gundogan is the 8, Rodri is the 6. One sits, one goes box to box. De Bruyne is the more attacking midfielder. The reason people talk about 6, 8 and 10s is because a lot of people do use them. Some people play 2 6s. So, but it is tactics. It can't be knocked. And for Ole to say, well, people get heads up on this, but the reality is Roy Keane, Paul Scholes, Brian Robson, were they 6s or 8s? So notably he didn't mention Paul Ince. I mean, maybe he watches the show or something because Paul Ince has said that, he's called Ole out a few times. But Paul Ince wasn't a 6 or an 8. He was a box-to-box player as well. But we're talking 20 years ago. We're talking 30 years ago. Like, the game has moved on. And The thing that frustrates me is that, Ole talks about no 6 and 8 and this, that and the other, and then he's got his number 6 talking about trying to become a number 6. I mean, Fred's exposed the plan. Like, we want Fred to take the ball off the back four and feed the forwards. The fact that he's telling us what his job is publicly, and if you've joined in a little bit late, Fred has said, I'm aware my job is to take the ball off the centre-backs and pass it forward. Well, he's not doing it. He's not doing it, is he? He's not. He's taking the ball off the back four and giving it back. So we know the plan. I fully expect that Carrick, McKenna and Ole are fully aware of what that midfielder needs to do. But the fact that Fred says he's learning on the job, staying after training, trying to figure it out, that just shows you how short we are in that position. But at least I suppose the positive is that if the player's talking about it, he's obviously been told by the coaches. But we do need that holding midfielder. And I see people talking about Jude Bellingham because he played well on Wednesday again. I see people talking about Declan Rice because he played well last night. We've got to stop falling into these traps. Like, we've got what we've got. Solskjaer said this is enough. Solskjaer said this is no more excuses. So if he hasn't figured out that he hasn't got a midfielder, then tough shit. We've got what we've got. I don't want to hear people talking about, let's get Declan Rice, let's get Jude Bellingham, let's solve this problem. Because you know what you're doing? You're playing into the hands of the Glazers again, where they want you to buy all the shirts, but then go, we're not quite ready. We're still a work in progress after 4 years or 8 years. We're not a work in progress. The Ronaldo signing was the biggest giveaway ever. We're not a work in progress. He's 36. He's going to be 37 in February. He's still one of the best players in the world, but we've got to deliver here and now. We can't be a work in progress anymore. It can't be about let's get Bellingham. You get Bellingham next year. He's going to take a year or two to settle into the Prem, possibly. Declan Rice might take a year to settle in. That's 2 years of Ronaldo gone. We've got to hit the ground now. We've got to be ready now. And quite rightly, the question that was asked about Ollie in the press conference yesterday about the midfield was the right question to ask. And he couldn't answer it. He couldn't answer what that midfield is meant to be doing, because I think at the moment, in fairness to Ollie, he doesn't know what it's meant to be doing either, because it's not doing the job. And Fred coming out and saying, well, I've got to take the ball back and pass it forward. I believe there is a player in Fred, and a lot of people said that Fred played well on Tuesday night. Ollie needs to go, says Alexander. United have the players to win trophies, but not the right manager. We need a Guardiola or a Klopp who brings energy into the team, says Alexander. Hey, Mark, wasn't there talks in pre-season about moving to a 4-3-3? What happened with that, says JP. There's a lot of talk in pre-season about the way we're playing, and that was put to Ollie, as we said, about how we are playing, and ultimately that's what I judge a player on. And when people, I put a tweet out this morning about McTominay, and McTominay's not going to be back until he won't be back for the West Ham game. So for me, that means you've got to play Matic in the midfield, and somebody replied to me on Twitter, fair play, and they said, well, you need to put some respect on Fred's name. He played well on Tuesday. And I'm like, I don't need to do anything you tell me to do for a start, because the whole point of having an opinion is it's individualistic. But I thought Fred was shit on Tuesday. I'm sorry, I did. When I think Fred becomes a better player when we defend, when that's all we're doing. And look, I had somebody message me yesterday and say, why are you calling United Stoke 2010? Because I'm calling them United Stoke 2010, because that's what I saw. And if you disagree with that, that's fine, but don't start shouting and trying to be abusive, telling me that I'm wrong. I've watched football for a long time. I get things wrong, I get things right, but I'm not changing my opinion on that. I wasn't being reactionary. That first half an hour, if you can be asked to go and watch it again, I'd sit next to Ollie with Carrick and everybody else behind him, and I'd sit there face to face and say that first half an hour reminded me of Stoke 2010, because you passed it between your centre-backs and hit a long ball aimlessly to nobody, and you did it at least 5 times in half an hour. That's a rhythm tactic. That is a rhythm learnt, instructed tactic. When your centre backs are hitting long balls, that reminds me of Stoke. So that's why I said it. And the first half an hour, Fred contributed to that, because he didn't pass the ball forward. He kept passing it sideways and then backwards. So the first half an hour for me, I thought Fred was as crap as he was against Wolves and Southampton. Then what happened is we went down to 10 men. We had no shots on goal. We'd played no forward passing. It was a defensive rearguard action. And then Fred did quite well, because there's no stress for Fred then there. We've not got 11 men. We're not playing against a low block. There's no issues for Fred. His inadequacies were not exposed after the red card. In fact, that going down to 10 men actually allowed Fred to have a better game than he's had for a while, because it's just defending. It's running around. It's defending. It's putting your foot in, which Fred actually is quite good at doing. The minute Wan-Bissaka got sent off, Fred had a better game. When we have 11 players and we've got to break people down, Fred gets exposed, like he did against Wolves, like he did against Southampton, like he did in the first half. So these people telling me that Fred had a good game on Tuesday, what are you trying to tell me? Yeah, when we went down to 10 men, he played well, but we were defending. Are we Manchester United, or are we an attacking side, or are we a defending side? So even those people who say that Fred played well on Tuesday, he only played well because we were a rearguard action, backs to the wall defending, and he was running around like a Duracell bunny, passion merchant, defending. That's fine. But that's not what we want. We want a player who can pass, and we want a player who can break the lines, and we want a player who can up the tempo. And he can't do that. And also, as I keep saying, why do people keep lowering the standards at this football club? Why? Even Ollie said it yesterday, didn't he? I don't know whether I wrote it down. I can't remember what he said. He said something along the lines of, I can't remember what he said. Thoughts on Antonio Conte's comments on Man United? I don't know what they are, Lucas, but if you can let us know, I'll read it out. Donny can play 10, 8 and 6, complete midfielder, so why doesn't he play? Fred is not complete without Scott, and even then Fred's lacking completion, says K9 Academy. There was a comment from Ollie yesterday, and if anyone can whack it in the chat, please let us know. But it was something about... He was asked about tactics, and he said I wish I had the quote. It was something like... And I don't want to be wrong on this, so someone can correct me, but it was something like, and I'm amazed I didn't write it down. No, all I've put is I'm not here to explain how my team play. It was something like it's about passion, it's about winning mentality, it's not about tactics or something like that. It was something like that. And that's very similar to what people say about Fred having a good game on Tuesday. That's just pure passion. That's work rate. I've said this before, I've said this for the last 8 years. It's got the standards at this football club have been lowered so far away from winning titles and Champions Leagues that we actually now, as a fan base, champion effort as an attribute. Man City with Kevin De Bruyne, or Chelsea with Mason Mount, or Liverpool with Mo Salah, they do not champion work rate as an attribute. Those 3 players work really hard, but it comes as a standard. It's an expectation, not an applause point. At United, you now may as well have these FIFA cards with effort 99. He's 99 at effort. He's the best effort player in football. At Manchester United, these things come as a standard. Those players that Ollie mentioned yesterday, Roy Keane, Paul Scholes, Brian Robson, nobody ever mentioned their effort because it was a standard. It was expected. People mention their actual football abilities, and we are now talking about Fred's performance on Tuesday and sometimes other players because they always give 100% for the shirt. I've heard it with other players as well. I'm not going to call them out because obviously Fred's the biggest issue in the team at the moment, I believe, because he's not playing the proper role that we need him to in relation to getting the ball and passing it forward. But we do hear it a lot. Oh, people get on these players' backs all the time, but they give 100% for the shirt. Well, whoop-de-shit. That's what I expect of any Manchester United player. I'm sure any Liverpool fan expects it. Arsenal dream of it. And, Man City and Chelsea. So work rate should not be a trait that we as fans are applauding. It should be an expectation, not a nice to have. And so I'm not going to start giving people great marks because of work rate. Hi Mark, I feel our fans need to relax with the insults towards Ollie, understand the frustration but show some respect, says Ijiro. As Shakhtar Fred was very attacking, it's kind of unfair to ask him to be a CDM. Chelsea would just buy one, not turn someone into it, says Daniel Clerk. He said he's willing to join United because they're a winning project and said he won't join Arsenal, says Lucas Wade. I'd like to see the quote on that. Just going back to that, I 100%, if you've listened to what Fred's just said in the quotes that have come out, he is definitely being forced into a role that he doesn't know. He's saying, I'm working on it all the time, taking the ball off the back four and passing it forwards. Square peg in a round hole. I don't think Van der Beek can play that role, by the way. I don't know why my name is being attached to Fred to Donny as a CDM. It makes me laugh when I'm on Twitter and I sometimes get tagged into something. Goldbridge has got blood on his hands, telling everyone Donny's a holding player. I've never said he's a holding player. In fact, we've had countless conversations about if he wants to be one, give him a chance. But I don't really think he is one. But I tell you what, Fred's definitely not one either. So that is a problem, isn't it? Mark, you couldn't meet young boys. How will you beat our joke of a team? If Ronaldo wasn't here, we would be higher. How would Ronaldo... Zane, before you start typing, have a think. How would Ronaldo not being here make you higher than us? You've got 3 points, mates. We've got 10. So Ronaldo has only started 1 Premier League game for us. So we'd have 7 points anyway. Do the maths. Get back on your GCSEs, mate. Maths can't buy you intelligence. But, no, seriously though, we've got a great opportunity on Saturday to bounce back against West Ham, and we do need to bounce back. And I think Solskjaer is right in a certain sense that we do need to be calm. We do need to be calm because it could be the calm before the storm. There might be worse to come, or it could just be a little blip. And in relation to the Champions League, there's still 15 points to play for, and we've got 3 home games still to come. So, I think if you're going to lose any game, as much as it's embarrassing, the best game to lose was the game to Young Boys, because if we'd lost to Newcastle last week, that's damaging to the Premier League. If you lose your last game of the Champions League group and you end up in the Europa League, that's damaging, like it was for us last year. It's far better to lose your first Champions League game than any other game, because we don't lose Premier League points, we're not out of the Champions League race, and it could be the kick up the arse we need. So if we're ever going to lose a game, and maybe nobody's thought of it like this, if we're ever going to lose a game, and you are always going to lose a game, that was the perfect game to lose. And that's the positive for me, and that's the positive Ollie and the players need to take as well. If you're ever going to lose a game, it's the right game to lose, because it's not actually massively damaging to our season. We're still on the same points as Liverpool. We're still well in the Champions League. Of course, I understand the concerns. The concerns are, is it the start of more bad results? Are we going to actually improve? Well, look, we'll have to wait and see. But, well, you know, it's a bad result, but it's probably come at the right time at the start of the season where things can be sorted. But you know, I do worry. It's decision time in that midfield. What is the plan in that midfield? It's interestingly because on our community tab we put a poll out yesterday about who's the best partner for Pogba. I bet that if the players went out there coachless and managerless, they would play better than under Ollie, says M. Parker. Fresh cut marks, says Daniel Kirk. Yeah, that's why I'm a little bit late this morning. But interestingly, Marcus Rashford's going to be back very, very soon. And this is a big positive. I mean, I'm a big fan of Rashford, as I'm sure most people are. But what I would say about Marcus Rashford is Marcus Rashford will start for Manchester United. And if Marcus Rashford starts for Manchester United, he'll start off the left, which means Pogba won't start off the left. Pogba will not be dropped, which means Pogba will go into the midfield, which means that somebody's got to play with Pogba. For me, this is a positive because Paul Pogba's our most creative midfielder. What we desperately need, and look, it's not, you know, I look at United teams of the past and I would go, oh my God, we need a new manager and we need about 6 players. I look at United now, I don't talk about the manager, but we need 1 player. We need a number 6. That's what we need. That is what we need. We need creativity from the midfield. We are 1 player away, and that's why many of us were obsessed over the summer about buying a 6. Ollie didn't want one. It wasn't a priority. It was a nice to have. So don't make the excuse of a number 6 for Ollie. He didn't prioritise one. He's happy with the squad he's got. Now, whether that's because he thinks Fred's a 6, whether it's because he thinks McTominay's a 6, we're going to find out. And he might be wrong on that one. But ultimately, I think Rashford coming back is fantastic for the team, not only because Rashford's a good player and I'm excited to see him playing fit for the first time in 18 months, but also because it pulls Pogba into the midfield. Now, with Pogba in the midfield, he is our most creative midfielder, and our midfield lacks creativity. The problem Ollie's got, and the decision Ollie needs to make, is if Pogba comes into the midfield, we know he can be creative, but he's dead. As I said, Fred's like kryptonite to Pogba's Superman powers. Like, he loses all powers and becomes Clark Kent. So we've seen Fred and Pogba play together a couple of times this season, and Pogba has been terrible in that situation. So we need to solve that situation to get Pogba more licensed to be free and the ball to move quicker. But I do think it's a positive, because imagine if Rashford was injured, I think we would still see Pogba off the left, and I think we'd see Scott McTominay and Fred a lot more. At least with Rashford back, we get Pogba in the midfield, which means he's got to find a solution to get the best out of Paul Pogba. Because we know in this fan base, if Pogba has a bad game, he gets a lot of stick. If he has a good game, he gets a lot of praise, and it's always a big media point. So Pogba coming into the midfield adds more focus onto the midfield. So I think this is a real positive, having Rashford back. How would you do it is the interesting thing. I believe a lot of the players are aware of Ollie's tactical shortcomings, but don't turn on him like Mourinho because they know another manager would come in and their positions would be under threat, says Shuddy. Interesting. We know we don't have a DM that can hold with Pogba in the midfield. That's why McFred and Pogba as a winger is a thing, says Mr. Glenn Johnson. We know all of this from last season and we didn't sign anyone to fix the issue, which is what I'm talking about, Mr. Glenn Johnson. I don't see that persisting this season. I think he's going to have to find somebody to play with him. Mark, you said Ronaldo doesn't love United enough, and I agree. If Ollie goes, we can find a quality manager. If Ronaldo goes, we can't get another Ronaldo. Yes, says Donny. I don't remember saying he doesn't love United enough. Oh, I think what you're talking about is, what I said is, if United have a really catastrophic season, I don't think Ronaldo would stay if he got a better offer. And why should he? I don't think Ronaldo's here to retire and let his career go out. I think he's here to come back and win things with United, and if that's not possible, I think there will be trouble ahead because he's a winner. I don't understand why play Pogba in the midfield when he can't play there without a CDM, and when he plays on the left, we attack better as a team, says Michael. Because Rashford is a first-team player. Rashford is an Ollie favourite. I like Rashford. Some of you, I know, are a bit questioning of him, but what we can tell you, whether you like him or not, is that Ollie will always pick Rashford. I mean, he used to pick him when he was basically half fit. So Rashi is going straight into that team, which means Pogba comes into the midfield. Now, the best player to play with Pogba for me is Matic. Some people quite liked McTominay and Pogba in the Europa League final. I don't really think we've seen enough of it to know. But the thing is about Fred, I think Fred's a really likeable player. And I think some of you support Fred because you like Fred. He's always got a smile on his face. He's a very popular player in the squad. I think that's a naive approach to have, by the way, because I can tell you there are footballers that you like at Manchester United who are complete knobheads in real life. But I'm not necessarily in the current squad, but I meant like over the last 20 years. You know, just because a player's Juan Mata's the most likeable footballer in the world. Do you want to pick him? Like, you know, that's what I mean. Just because somebody's likeable doesn't mean that they have to play for Manchester United. I do think there's a player in Fred, and I do think about 18 months ago he was playing fantastic for United. But something's gone wrong with Fred. Now, maybe he's got brain overload. Maybe we're trying to turn him into something that he's not. You know, maybe when he plays with McTominay, they share the load. But when he has to do it on his own, he's not capable enough. But I do think that we've got to solve that problem. Now, there are videos of me saying that I remember Fred and Pogba playing together in the Europa League semi-final against Sevilla. We should have won that game. Fred, Pogba and Bruno played fantastically well in that game. The defence let us down and the attack let us down. The attack missed chances and the defence let 2 goals in. So, you know, I still believe there is a player in Fred, but what I will not move on is that he's been shocking for a long time, and he's brought that shocking performances into this season. I'm sorry, his performances against Wolves and Southampton were shambolic, absolutely shambolic, and you've got to call it out. I don't care how big the smile is, I don't care how much you like him, he's not been good this season, and he either becomes good quickly or he's... I'm worried. Look, we're doing the West Ham preview live this afternoon. It'll be about 2:30. But I'll give you a little bit of spoiler of one of the things I'm going to talk about in that is the midfield and who I would pick. But what I would say on Fred is this. The way Fred is playing at the moment, I don't think we can win. And that's not good. Like, we beat Wolves because one moment from Greenwood. We should have lost. We should have lost to Southampton as well. And Fred was poor in both those games. He was a massive contributing factor. Now, whether you think he played well against young boys or not, I don't think he played well in the first half an hour when we were trying to score goals. I think he played well when we had to go on the back foot because he doesn't have to be creative. Against West Ham, we're playing a very strong midfield. I'm worried the form Fred's in that we'll lose because he's playing. So, you know, that's how I feel about Fred. I do believe there's a good player in there, but how many times have we said that over the years about people? It's like Harry Kane in the Euros. I thought he was bang out of form. There's no doubt he's a fantastic player, but I would have took him off in the final. I would have took Harry Kane off in the final. I thought he was trash. But Southgate keeps him on because it's a favourite, whatever. But I'm not saying Fred can't be a good player, but at the moment I think he's a bloody liability. And he's either got to step up or be moved out of the team. And I wouldn't play him at the weekend. Mark, I wish Ollie would take some accountability for his actions and stop defending the frailties of the team when we have a bad game. It would be nice if he came out and gave us reasons so we can understand, says Dari. The problem is both McTominay and Fred are box-to-box at their best. We have absolutely no way to fill the DM role without a transfer, says Dowell. But yeah, as I said, in relation to that, I don't think we should be talking about that. I really don't think we should be talking about that. Why has Adam just come on the screen? I don't think we should be talking about... buying a midfielder because we've just had one of the best summer transfer windows we've ever had, and they chose not to buy a midfielder. So I personally am not going to make an excuse about that midfield. I'm not going to give Ollie and the coaches and Manchester United an excuse that, oh, we're one midfielder away, you could have bought a midfielder. I mean, look, I'm over the moon that we've got Jadon Sancho, and I think Jadon Sancho will be a good signing for us, but let's be honest, Did we need Jadon Sancho as much as we needed a holding midfielder? No. Well, there's 74 million. 74 million would get you the best... 74 million would have got you Declan Rice, to be honest. It would have done. If we'd have offered 74 million for Declan Rice, negotiations would have started. We chose to go for Jadon Sancho. So don't look, and you can clip this, you can do whatever you like, but I would hold this in your thoughts. I think we need a holding midfielder. Many of you think we need a holding midfielder. Don't use it as the excuse this season for Ollie and the team, because they could have bought one. And I'm very happy with Jadon Sancho, but did we need Jadon Sancho as much as we needed a holding midfielder? And I would say no. We could have waited for Sancho another year, because no one else was in for him. And Greenwood can play off the right. Diallo's still here. Lingard's staying as well. Like, we didn't need to go for Sancho as much as we did a holding midfielder. And that 74 million would get you anybody. It would get you Ndidi, it would get you Declan Rice. I'm not saying you'd get them for 74 million, but if you offered the 74 million, Leicester and West Ham would definitely go, let's negotiate. Or you'd get somebody else. You would get a fantastic holding midfielder. Ollie's number one priority this summer was not Varane, not Ronaldo, it was Jadon Sancho. So there can be no excuse about the holding midfield situation, because if it was the priority it should have been, we would actually have one. Don't want Ollie as a manager, but I don't understand why everyone wants Kante. He's everything, every defensive bit like Jose, says Dazu. Can I just shock everybody here? I don't want Kante at Manchester United. I've never wanted Kante at Manchester United. I've said this for a very long time. I know it's fashionable. I know a lot of people want him, but it's just my opinion, and I don't care. And I will, it's not bravery, it's my opinion, and I might be in the minority. I don't want Kante at Manchester United. I don't think he's a good fit. I don't think it would go well. I wouldn't want him at Manchester United. I'm sorry. And people say, well, he's better than Ollie, but some might say Graham Potter's better than Ollie. At the moment, the way he plays football, it is. Do I want to just get rid of Ollie just to get something that's perceivably better that I don't think's a good fit? No. I wasn't 100% about Pochettino, but I would rather have Pochettino over Kante. I'm not a massive fan of Kante coming to Manchester United. Mark, what's your thoughts on Ollie basically saying he doesn't have a philosophy, he only wants good players, he seems to think that solves everything, says Bradley. I mean, I think that's a very interesting point, Bradley. I just want to talk about Lingard in a moment as well. A few people have mentioned about that. I just don't like the style of football that Kante plays. I know a lot of you do. It's not a fallout point. I get it. It's your opinion. I respect it. I can see probably why you do want Kante, but I can only be honest and true to myself. I've never really wanted Kante at Manchester United, and I've said it a few times, so find the clips. But, how about Zidane? I mean, I would take Zidane. I do like the style of football that Zidane has. But it doesn't have to be Zidane or Kante. And, I mean, seriously, why are we even having the conversation? Because it's not even a, like a spark, an idea of a spark. There's not even a spark of this idea at United. There is absolutely zero contemplation in the players or the club to remove Ollie as manager. It's miles off. It won't happen anyway, but it's miles off. So, it's simple. If Ollie's by Christmas drops us in Europa and is out of the race, we sack Ollie and we get in Zidane, says Akshay. I don't think he can fail. I've said it before. I don't think he can fail with the team that he actually has. Hi Mark, people talking about the coaching setup not being right, but Mike Phelan was the field man during Fergie's time. Are his inputs not being followed, says Ben Gallera. Look, I know you can listen to what Ollie said yesterday and you can interpret it in a way that, he said he just wants winners, he's not bothered about tactics. I don't think it was Ollie's best press conference yesterday, and it was a shame. I thought Levin did a brilliant press conference reaction, and it's probably a good job I wasn't available to do it, because I thought it was a bad one, and every one I've done recently I've said Ollie's done a good one. I think he got absolutely lost in the question about tactics, and I don't know whether it was he didn't want to expose his tactics or he didn't really have much confidence in explaining what his tactics are, but it came across badly, let's be honest. And it did come across as, people say he's all about vibes and moments of brilliance. It did come across that I send a team out that's just going to win because they're talented. It didn't come across that we actually have any structure or plan. Paul Robinson's one of our moderators. I don't know whether he's on this morning, but he's been on the call-ins, he's been in the chat. And one of the things that always makes me think about Paul in relation to the chat is that he always says, what's our style of play? And he's definitely been saying that for 2 years, maybe even longer. So is it wrong that Manchester United fans want to know what our style of play is? What's our philosophy? I mean, Liverpool fans know. Klopp talks about it all the time. Pep lets Man City fans know about it when they can be asked to turn up. I think it's about time we knew what our style of play was. It's not. I don't think Ollie can sit there and go, well, it's about winning. I don't think you can sit there and go, I'm not going to tell you. I think we should know, because we already know. The United way is risk-taking, fast tempo, attacking football with width. That's basically the United way. And we're not doing that. But if we're not doing that, what are we doing? And there's this big, massive question mark. So I think Ollie's got to find this. I think there's been times where I've been very impressed with the way that we've played football under Ollie. And look, we have finished second and we have finished third. But if I had to pinpoint what our style of play is, it's counter-attacking football. It's well organised and hit on the break. And that's not rocket science. That's not hard to teach. We need better than that. We need better coaching than that. And people talk about Mike Phelan. I think it was the Manchester Evening News yesterday said that Mike Phelan isn't involved in the coaching. Well, Ollie's not involved in the coaching, so it's Michael Carrick and McKenna. Michael Carrick was playing football 5 years ago and has never done any coaching other than be given a coaching job straight out of... It's like, I've just take your shirt off, put a tracksuit on, you're a coach. That's literally Carrick's background. Genius footballer, reads the game brilliantly. I totally understand why Michael Carrick could be a fantastic coach, but ultimately, no background other than going straight from playing for United to being a coach for United. McKenna's come from the youth setup, and Darren Fletcher's been brought back from Stoke. And again, no real background in football other than playing for United. So we need to see an identity. These coaches that people are questioning need to start showing that they're good coaches. And, you know, it's very, very clear. Mike Phelan doesn't coach. Ole Gunnar Solskjaer doesn't coach. The coaches are Carrick and McKenna, and they're well thought of, and they're, you know, but they've got to start delivering. It's year 3. And the big question would be, if Solskjaer did get the sack tomorrow, which won't happen, but hypothetically if he did, where would Michael Carrick's next job be? Where would McKenna's next job be? Where would Darren Fletcher's next job be? I'm not convinced there's many Premier League clubs that are going to be all over that. Maybe Championship, and that says a lot. We need to start seeing a style of football that makes us believe in these coaches and what they're trying to achieve at Manchester United. And at the moment, we're not seeing that. And I don't think it's a rage point. I don't think it's an angry point. I think it's a valid point to be. It's not too much to ask to know what Manchester United's style of football is. It's not too much to ask to expect to see patterns on the pitch. And I'll tell you what, I'm more than happy to discuss it with any of these bloody blue tick prats. I thought we played like Stoke in the first half an hour against Young Boys, and I'll sit back and do a watch along with one of them, and we'll talk about why I think we played like Stoke, because I remember it vividly. Side to side between the midfielders, back to Maguire or Lindelof who hit a long ball. That's from the bloody training ground. That's not from anywhere else. And why are we doing that against a team like that? Kante will play a back 5. We don't want to see it, says Steve Locke. Yeah, it's a good point. Hi Mark, people talk about the coaching setup not being right. Okay, we've done that. We should play Harry Hindsight in midfield. Give him a go, says Tyron. Yeah, and clouds from all areas are beginning to gather over Ollie. The torch is being shone on him as for his answer to the midfield situation yesterday. It was Sunday League at best. He must improve or gone, says Ben Anderson. Well, you know what? I think these conversations are all completely valid, but let's not forget we've got a massive game on Sunday. It's the perfect game. I'm very excited about it. It's West Ham at West Ham. West Ham are playing well. They'll be up for this. They're well organised. Is their football amazing? No, it's David Moyes, but it suits them. And, you know, they haven't got Antonio. That's a big win for us. We've got to go and win. I think it will be a draw, but I'll talk about that on the preview later. But it's a tough game. But we've got Ronaldo, we've got Bruno, we've got Pogba, we've got a talented team. I think we are a philosophy away from being a really good team. I think we are a high tempo away from being a good team. I think we are a forward pass away from being a good team. I don't think we're far off. They've just got to release the shackles really and start playing more risk-taking football. And I say risk. Is it a risk when Liverpool carve a team open 5 times in the first 10 minutes? It's an intent, it's a high tempo, and it's passing the ball forward, and it's moving, and it's training. And it's like, if I pass the ball into Bruno, do I stand still or do I move? If the ball goes into Bruno and I'm the right-hand-sided player, do I move closer to him to give him a pass? Or do I stand out on the right wing? I mean, look, I'm not going to drown people in tactics, but there are things that when you are coaching or being coached that you are told. If the ball comes into you, we're very static. If Fred passes the ball into Bruno, Fred stands still. Is Pogba moving closer towards him? Is Sancho moving closer towards him? You know, Bruno gets the ball and a lot of the time he has to pass it back. we should be practicing one-touch football. People should know where to move when that ball's on. You know, it should go from Fred to Bruno, lays it off to Sancho, Bruno spins, Fred's moved, there's 2 passes for Sancho. The thing is, it sounds complicated, but it's not. And it's very easy for a player to learn this. And it's very hard for an opposition to learn it, because they don't know when Fred passes it into Bruno that Sancho's going to make a move 5 metres to his left to receive it from Bruno, so that Bruno can then spin into that position and go right, and Fred's moved forward, or Pogba's moving forward. These things are just basically coaching. But if you watch United, it's static. That's why when Donny or Pogba get it in the midfield, they'll pass it to Fred or backwards, because nothing's going on. Is Ollie anything more than a glorified press conference speaker, says Spencer? Ollie don't have a philosophy, but has tactics for single games such as against PSG, Chelsea, Man City. You don't win these games without tactics, says Nick. There are tactics there. I mean, I've always disputed the PE teacher thing. There are tactics there. Of course there are. Of course there are. But I don't think they are there 90% of the season. I think 90% of the season we're looking at the opposition and we're playing pragmatic, trying to win a game 1 or 2-0. Don't worry, Mark. Freddie's working meticulously on his game, according to the United website. First he's learning passing, then imagining himself not giving the ball away. Nick P, that's exactly what he said, more or less, yes. Spoke about it at the start. Hi, Mark. Still could not believe he kept Fred on over Donny against Young Boys, says Mac Daddy. Well, look, I just want to talk about Jesse Lingard as well. A lot of people have spoke about this yesterday, and I suppose that I haven't done a show since the comments from Ollie, who basically said, on Lingard's contract, we're working on it. He's a Manchester United player through and through, and in the future as well. So they're desperate to get Jesse on a new long-term contract. I think from that, we've just got to take the fact that he's going to be a Manchester United player for years to come. Now, I think he's 29 in December. I mean, look, if you'd have asked me this 2 years ago, I probably would have got very frustrated. I was frustrated with Jesse. He's not a Man United first team player, and I don't think he should be at Man United. But look, at the end of the day, there's a lot more things to be frustrated about than this. He had a fantastic loan at West Ham. I think for his career, he should have gone. And I said that in the summer. So if he wants to sign a long-term contract at Manchester United, that's absolutely fine. If Solskjaer gets the sack and Zidane comes in, Jesse will never play first-team football for Manchester United. He'll be a bench player for the rest of his career. If Ollie thinks he's a first-team player and Jesse's going to play first-team football for Manchester United, I don't think we'll ever win the league. It's the same as Lindelof. So, do I think Lingard should play first-team football for United? No. Do I think he's good enough to be a bench player? Yes. It's that simple for me. So if we're going to keep him, we're going to keep him. He is a United lad through and through. He's a likeable lad, and I think he's sorted himself out in relation to, you know, his inconsistencies. I think he's hit his level, and his level is bench player for England, bench player for Man United. That's what he is. And if that's what we're going to use him for, fine. What I would say is, we've got a hell of a lot of players who play in his position, and we should have sold a couple of other players instead, because we're so overwhelmed with attacking talent at Manchester United. So I don't lose any sleep over the fact that Jesse's going to sign a new contract. I completely understand why he'd want to. He loves Manchester United. And look, one thing Ollie's been very consistent on is that he's absolutely obsessed with people that have come through the youth setup, whether it's Rashford, McTominay, Jesse, Greenwood. You know, this is something that Ollie is absolutely obsessed with. So is it a surprise to me? No. The thing for me is, he's just not a first team player. We can't win a title with Jesse Lingard in the team, because to pick Jesse Lingard, you've got to drop either Bruno, Rashford, Sancho, Pogba, Greenwood. One of those players needs to be dropped for Jesse to start. And for me, and I think Jesse would sit here right now and agree, he's not at that level. So for me, he's a bench player at United. And if that's what he's going to be, that's what he's going to be. Of course, there was an opportunity to make some money. Of course, I personally think if I was him, I would have gone to West Ham, because you'd play first team football week in, week out. But if he's happy at Manchester United, and it's not always about the football, you know, you've got to take into life, family life as well. If he's happy to be at Manchester United, getting half an hour here and there, starting in the Carabao Cup, maybe starting... I think he might start at the weekend, actually. I think he might start him against West Ham. He'll have definitely penciled him in, but we'll talk about that on the preview. Too many cooks spoil the broth. Whose tactics do we adhere to? Is it Phelan, McKenna or Ollie, or even Carrick? None of them seem to be a leader, says Omka. I feel that we are one manager away from winning something, says Minnie. I still think we're number 6 as well. But hopefully not. We've got a talented team. You're sounding like a broken record from Tuesday. Ollie doesn't do the coaching. Carrick and McKenna are a championship level. Someone needs to take accountability, says Sam. We cannot play high risk with Fred and Pogba as the duo to cover space. If we get counter-attack, that's literally asking for trouble, says Mr. Glenn Johnson. Well, look, everyone's got an opinion. Absolutely fine. But if we win on Sunday, that's a big result. And suddenly people will shut up again. So I think that, you know, it is a setback. It's the right game to have a setback if we're going to get a setback. And it's how you respond to that setback. But as I said at the start, I don't want to keep having setbacks. Because it's like what I said at the start. If you're learning to walk and you keep falling over, that's expected. But if you keep walking, if you're learning to walk for a long time and you're still falling over, you probably need glasses. Because you've probably got problems with your balance. And if United need glasses, that means we need... That's basically saying we do need a new manager. If we keep falling over, we definitely haven't got the right coaching setup, have we? If Ollie's the right man, and he said it himself, there's no more excuses. If we're going to be in a title race in April, we can't fall over again like we did against Young Boys. So let's wait and see what happens. And Sunday's the perfect opportunity for that. I'm going to be live with a preview this afternoon. Make sure you join us for that. I'll go through the preview later. People have been asking where the preview is, but we aren't playing till Sunday and I want to do it live, so I'll do it this afternoon. Should Ollie actually start doing the coaching, says Steve Locke? I'd take more responsibility, yeah. Can Lingard give us insight to beat West Ham? Anytime Ollie's back, I'd go against the wall players, but pull it out of the bag. I prefer 4-4-2, says Dark. Well, I'll talk about West Ham this afternoon, but I do have a prediction on how that will go and how I would set up. Anyway, thanks everyone for watching. Make sure you smash a like on the video. If you're interested in driving with Goldbridge, midday, episode 4 is going up, and it's very football related, so make sure you tune in. It's a cracker. I'll speak to you all in a bit.